Hi, Kerry Fitz here, connecting with confidence again, this time with Julie Woods as we continue this beautiful series about adapting to extraordinary change. Julie, welcome back.
Thank you, Kerry. I'm back.
As you know, I'm very excited and I'm laughing already about today's episode because we're talking about being able to laugh at yourself. And this is just such an incredible lesson. And I might even share a story myself at the end. But yeah, I want to hear your stories. What have you been learning about learning to laugh at yourself?
I think that was one of the first things I noticed about blind people when I went blind, that they were happy
Yeah.
and they laughed a lot. And I was quite surprised about that. I didn't expect to find happy blind people. I thought blind people were going to be stuck on the couch and sitting in the dark
Yeah.
and that was my preconception about blindness and not their reality at all. I noticed very quickly that they were very good at laughing at themselves,
Mm.
because when you are blind, it's really easy to do dumb things. And if you don't laugh at yourself, it's going to be a long, slow, uncomfortable life. And, you can do, I think probably the first mistake I made was sitting on someone in a waiting room in the hospital, which is quite easy, especially if they're wearing the same colour as the chair. Note to self. So that could be really uncomfortable and embarrassing. But if you can have a bit of a laugh about it with the person, and I often say, oh, it's a great way of meeting friends. Because of course people go, what's this person doing sitting, about to sit on me? And that's one of the important reasons that I take my white cane with me everywhere, so that people know that I am blind or that I have a vision impairment, because I'm now totally blind. I remember going up the main street of town once with my white cane, and I went to push the audible signal at the traffic lights.
Oh, yeah.
Except I didn't realise there was a man in between me and the button. So I went to push the button, and there he was. There was his back. I went, oh, sorry. And he went, oh, sorry about that. And he turned around and went, anytime. So I'm going red as I'm telling this story, Kerry. It's just so easy to get yourself into those situations, and it's really important to be able to laugh at yourself at those times.
Julie, I have tears rolling down my face right now. I can just imagine just poking someone in the back. Thankfully, it's probably the best place to poke someone if you're going to do that, like you're pushing a button. So, I love the visual there, and sitting on someone. So, note to self: do not wear the same colour as the chairs.
That's right. If you go to a low vision conference, or if you go to speak to a group of blind or people with low vision, that's right. Make sure you wear something high contrast. Stripes are always good.
Yeah, and so the white cane might spare the the sighted people from being sat on because
That's right.
you'd feel their feet as you get to them.
It gives them a bit of a warning.
So we thought it was giving you a warning, but it's actually warning other people as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess, yeah, it works both ways. Now I've completely lost the question I was going to ask you, Julie. Where were we? So, yeah, so learning to laugh at yourself, and you said it diffuses the situation. And so I think, those moments could be so uncomfortable, like for that, for the man who you prodded in the back, for someone that you're about to sit on. So, yeah, what impact have you noticed on other people? Because even though you might not see the expression on their face, you would hear their response to you.
I think it's interesting because people feel slightly very cautious about doing the wrong thing. They
Yeah.
don't want to be politically incorrect.
Yeah.
So I find that when I react like that, it gives them permission to laugh and to relax as well.
Yeah.
Because I know that they are going to be most comfortable if they can laugh and relax. I
Yeah.
think the one thing is that it's okay for me to laugh at myself But if someone else takes the mickey and makes a joke about your blindness, it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
So let the person, the blind person or the person with difference, take the lead on that. And I think that's one piece of advice I would give
Oh,
to sighted
absolutely.
people.
Yeah, because I think, sighted people also can very much learn from this, which is why we're talking about it, because we need to be able to laugh at ourselves. But no one likes
Yeah.
being laughed at.
No, they
If
don't.
if I'm laughing at myself, then you can laugh with me.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So it's the difference between laughing with me and laughing at me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just, I don't know, it's just really getting used to embarrassment. I think that's probably something that we're not that good at.
Yeah. So you're
We
not
get
taking yourself.
embarrassed and feel awkward. Some people, I don't know whether you notice, Kerry, aren't very good when they're on the back foot,
Yeah.
and they come out kind of fighting and it can be quite aggressive. And
Yeah.
so I think it's if you do want to make a change to the way you react to things, just ask yourself, how do I react to situations when I've done something really embarrassing?
Yeah. When we go back to the beginning of this conversation, you talked about feeling dumb or doing something dumb. And, that's like a judgment that we put on ourselves.
Yeah, it
We'll
is.
say that something, was dumb, but really it's not. It's completely understandable that you could sit on someone if you know there's a row of chairs there and you don't see the person. Well, so it's not a dumb thing to do at all. It's, can be embarrassing for sure. But the expectations that we have on ourselves, I think, are what cause us to be so anxious and stressed and, take ourselves too seriously. So
Mm,
when we
mm.
can give ourselves the grace that we would give somebody else, then, then we're free
That's
to,
right. That's exactly right. One of the things that's given me a lot of grace is getting dressed up into my Christmas pudding outfit and walking down the main street and giving out Christmas pudding truffles or writing people's names in Braille at Christmas time.
that's so lovely.
Because I find that really it gives people permission to have a laugh, and it takes them away from themselves as well. It's a bit like
Mm,
Santa.
yeah.
When we see Santa, we go into this role, don't we? Oh, Santa. Oh, I'm going to ask him for, the new iPhone XR, and we're kind of like back to being a child again. So it's about tapping into that inner child for yourself or for allowing other people to do that as well. And if you
Yeah.
can be relaxed. And as I say, I've found dressing up a really good way of doing that. It just instantly puts people at ease, and they can have a laugh. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, what else, when you just think back through the memory banks, what else have you, done or experienced that's just had you in stitches?
I think one of the times when I went out for lunch with one of my colleagues, Dawn, and we went out for lunch in the middle of our city here in Dunedin, and it's a place called the Octagon. And there's parking there, and Dawn drove me into town, and we went to park on a mobility park where people with disabilities can park.
Yeah.
And she went to pull into the car park. She was driving, of course, and pulled into the car park and then had to reverse back to settle into the park. Her position
Yeah.
wasn't good. So
Yeah.
she backed back and she backed onto the footpath, and then she went forward, and then she nearly touched, she kind of went out, and then she had to have about 6 goes at it. And she glanced to her right and she said to me, "Julie," she said, "there are 2 men over there laughing at me." And I thought, I'm not surprised. And I said, "I know, we'll get them." So I handed her my white cane, and she opened the driver's door and unfolded the cane and tapped her way round to the footpath while I got out of the passenger side. made my way to the footpath, and apparently they looked over and their faces like, wow, just their jaws dropped apparently. So sometimes it's just really fun to have a bit of a joke.
So cheeky. Yeah, you can just imagine that really messing with their heads. Like, hey,
I know.
how did she get all the way to town without?
Woman driver.
Yeah, Julie.
We'll get you back.
That's great. And I can imagine that, like when you're trying to park or you're trying to do something and you're just not getting it right. And so either you can get frustrated with yourself, which makes it harder to get it right, or you can end up in stitches, which also makes it harder to get it right. It can be hard to stay calm. So the poor woman. But this reminds me of when I was going through a checkout with a friend of mine who's deaf. And she was teaching me sign language. And she had some hearing. She had a hearing aid and she could, hear in a quiet space, she could hear something. But she said, we're going shopping and I won't be able to hear you and I'm just going to make you sign. So it was, to improve my sign language. And so as we go through the checkout and she's signing to me and I'm not allowed to say anything, then the checkout, the girl there at the checkout says to her, she started chatting with her and it just completely ignored me because she just assumed that I was the deaf person because my friend had been talking and signing to me and I was signing back. And it just really hit me how it is to be ignored. And it happened a few times because, I was hanging out with a number of deaf people. And yeah, I just saw how people would make assumptions that I was the deaf person. And then I was treated like deaf people often are. And it was, so it's made me more conscious of how we include people who, and this is a little off topic with, laughing at yourself, but, they taught me also about laughing at yourself. We don't have to get it right. And it doesn't matter how other people are judging because we're doing whatever we're doing, and your friend was just doing her parking and, getting judged. But that was a great solution, Julie, just to refer to last episode.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I found out very early on, Kerry, that no one wanted to be around a grumpy blind person. So I worked very hard at making other people feel comfortable about my blindness. And the way I could do that was with humour. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And it's not just that people don't want to be around a grumpy blind person. We just don't really want to be around grumpy people, full stop, do we?
Exactly. So another reminder to all of us, blind or not, how much more fun it is to be around people who are at ease with themselves and are able to laugh at themselves.
Yeah. And you shared with me a beautiful quote about taking ourselves more lightly. Do you want to share that?
G.K. Chesterton, who said, angels can fly because they take themselves lightly.
That's beautiful. Well, you're an angel in my world, Julie, and I'm so happy to be sharing these conversations with you.
Thank you, Kerry.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add, or any other, final funny memories that you'd like to throw in before we wrap up today?
Well, I could tell you when I was interviewed by That's Life magazine, which is an Australian publication, I think. And they interviewed me and I went along to my local sports dairy to get a copy, and the guy behind the counter said, I'm sorry. I said, do you have any copies of That's Life magazine? And he said, yes, we do. And he gave it to me and I said, I don't have any money. And he said, don't worry, take it and bring me the money later. And I took it back to my office and I thought, oh, it's quite fat for $2.75 is what he told me how much it was. And I sat down at my desk and I waited for my admin support to come back from lunch, and she called out to me and she said, Julie, I've got a copy of That's Life magazine. And I held up my magazine as well and I said, so have I. And she paused and she said, Julie, that's a penthouse. The shopkeeper had tricked me.
Not quite the same genre as That's Life.
Not quite the same genre.
He knew you'd be back.
but my nephew was horrified, but I thought, no, good on you. He's having a joke, and I found it very funny.
So obviously he's got the relationship to be able to do that.
Quite right. That's true.
Yeah, because you know, you did say at the beginning of this episode that, you know, it's better to laugh at yourself than have other people poke fun. But yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Julie, for sharing that. And I knew that listeners would be wanting you just to share one more story. So thank you. And let's come back next episode.
Thank you, Kerry.
And explore your next key. Try something once. And I know you're going to have some great adventures to share with us there too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.